when you need room for control wards in your inventory, but I say sell your Dorans, probably a better strategy. Anyways, I think looking forward into this mid-game now as turrets start to fall down, controlling pockets of vision becomes a whole lot more important. I like some of the tools that Lowkey do have to play off of key spells, because you have the Cocoon, you have the Thresh Hook in terms of fishing for picks and these types of ideas. I think that the strength in Lowkey's comp is going to be because they don't have to commit off of those plays. They can throw them out and suss out whether or not they actually want to go for the fight. Whereas if you're Mega, I think you're much more tied down to Lloyd jumping in or Pop going for engage, where they have to commit their actual champion's body into the fight, which can just be much more inherently risky.
And see if they can find that setup, find that scenario. There is, of course, a lot of vision. You check in on the mini-map, of course. Decent coverage around the mid lane, decent coverage around the pit. Kind of odd vision, if I'm honest. Very defensive from the side of Mega, but still does give them enough access into the river that they could contest. And Lowkey, it's only 20 minutes of the game. They're not realistically looking to take that objective. There have been no mountain drakes. You had a cloud into an ocean, not the ideal spawns for aggressive objective taking. And no real tank either. So not an easy Baron, I think, for either side in this game.
So something I think that's an option to both teams is G4 potentially going to find himself in a little bit of trouble here.
Good read next to Cocoon.
Venus not using his spells, though.
Style point.
Now, is he caught?
Back out. Has to flash out.
That was suspect.
Look, it's fine. Realistically, DNK looked really cool. Venus, I think, needed to use that opportunity to get out, but I think he did not realize how many members of the enemy team were coming in.
Yeah, the problem there is definitely the number Spanish. Hook does land.
Hook connects. Clyde now coming into the backside. G4 in the midst of the team. Venus still alive. A Celebrity instantly dies. Artifact trying to find something, but he gets locked in by the Camille. Yes, he's invisible. When it becomes lightning, not going to connect. Artifact dashing in. The heal is there. The show. Lloyd taking out Artifact. Knocks him out instantly. And Mega coming out on top of the fight.
Yeah, Artifact getting a little excited right there. Very close to getting multiple kills, but unfortunately locked down underneath the tower with nowhere to go. That was a read where both teams realized, hey, there's going to be a fight around mid lane after Venus burnt his flash, and both teams were contesting very heavily for vision control over that over the bush in that top side of mid lane, where you do see the one red ward on your screen currently, but sort of unfolded in an unexpected way, because a lot of times you try to crash and not actually force the fight, but instead try to get pressure on top of the tower. There is the initial hook coming down, though, and while Lloyd is able to survive on the top side of the fight was actually where G4 just got straight up solo killed by Hani. Tons of damage coming through from them. And then Artifact goes in, but the heal is the bait, and he can't survive.
Nice zoom in. I appreciate it. Dramatic death. Interesting fight. I like that, and this is what we talked about, to be fair. You talked about Venus fishing for picks. They have the Elise, they have the Thresh. I don't quite think that's what you meant or what you wanted.
Well, the fight was also a 4v5 because Celebrity died instantly. 0 damage coming through from him. Now, as far as like expectations looking forward to the next few minutes of the game, something that I always like to see teams go for when both the outer towers are down is pushing out your side lanes. If you can get vision and protect your side lanes, you push out those side lanes to create pressure. And then once those waves are into the tower, the enemy team has to respond. Then the immediate follow-up is to collapse with both your side lanes, which is very easy on champions like the Kled and the Kali, and just move in towards that mid lane tower. Therefore, you can effectively get yourself a 5v3 and look to knock down that structure, because once that mid lane tower goes down, it becomes so much easier to actually advance your vision into the enemy jungle, try to set up for some picks.
But as you can see, a little bit difficult to contend with Rocky at the moment. Artifact has now been placed against the Camille, so Morellicon now starting to pay off as the Ravenous Hydra for Rocky will be mitigated to a certain degree, and the great battle for Krugs will end.
The problem that's going to arise for Lowkey in the next few minutes, though, is that Artifact can hold against the Camille. I think that's pretty apparent here, but he's running in Ignite and not the teleport, so it must be Hani, once Baron becomes a much more viable objective for these teams to play around, to be the one moving down in towards that bottom lane, which is always then going to put Lowkey on a timer, because Rocky is going to consistently be looking to push in that wave and eventually start knocking down these towers. And unless Lowkey can commit multiple members bottom lane and either force Rocky away, get a flash, get a kill, and buy time with themselves, that side lane win condition is always going to be apparent.
And the fishing and the vision game continues. But it will not be the Baron that's focused at this stage. It will just be the Ocean Drake both teams are vying for. Honestly, objectives like this in a game like this feel more like a catalyst for a fight than an actual buff. I don't think anyone's too worried about the Ocean. Yeah, the mid lane tower will retain a decent amount of priority, and here comes the Kled. Artifact leaps right in, gets knocked right back out, but the Kled is still going forward. Will get pulled in onto the Zin. He's going to dash away. Warning shot. was a warning shot. Just threw it in. Just wanted to see the reactions. Get some summoner spells to, of course, force Lloyd's flash. So a small advantage to the side of Lowkey.
At the same time, Lowkey lost a lot of ultimates here, so they really only have the culling if a fight is going to break out. So I do feel like they're a little hesitant, especially with the idea that Mega keep wanting to push in for mid tower, because at this point in the game, that mid lane outer tower is almost always going to be more valuable than especially something like the Ocean Drake. So Lowkey splitting up some members to try and make sure they can clear away those waves. Still, I like the idea for Lowkey to try and find that fight, specifically when we look at the itemization between these two junglers. Because right now, Lloyd is going for a Trinity Force, which is something you see a lot more in solo queue than on the professional stage. And while this will give him a stronger 2-item power spike, at the same time, it delays that second item, whereas DNK just went straight for the Zonias, which is going to give him a lot of value.
I gotta hold that thought, because Hani might be in trouble here. Rocky steps forward, uses the ultimate, gets the dismount before he ults. I love it. Hextech ultimatum comes out, and Rocky grabs a very easy solo kill.
And now who actually matches Rocky? I think he could have stuck around in this bottom lane. He's making sure that he's not getting ganked immediately. But the rest of Mega can move over towards the Baron, because no one can match Rocky. He can get this tower, and if Artifact comes down, I would really like to see Mega seize an objective on the other side.
Look, I love how Mega immediately pinged the Baron after he finds that kill, knowing that they have this point of pressure now to play around. Instead, they're not going to run into the mid lane, break the tier 1 tower as G4 starts to fish for kills, and if Rocky keeps this up, he's single-handedly going to pull his team ahead in this game as the gold now veers in the favor of Mega.
And now it's going to become even easier for this split push to occur. Not just because Rocky got some extra gold and experience pushing in that wave, but with the mid lane tower falling, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes so much easier to get that deep vision. And specifically because when you push down that mid lane, now all of a sudden there's no protection for Lowkey. So they have to wait longer for that minion wave to push all the way into them, and then they have to push out that wave while you're roaming somewhere else. So it does create these larger windows now for Mega to get things done around the map and just unlock more options for them.
And as you mentioned, 2-item power spike now comes in for the Xin. Double Trinity Forces on the side of Mega. Would not want to be caught out by the team. Elise, of course, felt like the single strong point in the early game. DNK, though, has not really got a ton of very oppressive itemization here. Falling behind in terms of experience. Could still fish for a pick, but difficult without any follow-up damage. No longer the powerhouse 2-0 Elise in the early game that he once was. G4 now running. Cocoon will not connect. Artifact going to be in trouble. Dashes back, goes into the Shroud. DNK fishing for a little bit more, but Lloyd does so much back. Gonna pull away. G4 stepping forward, but now they're gonna look for the collapse. Lloyd is now in trouble. The fight is turning against Mega. Lowkey step in, take out the jungler. But Camille's on the bot side. They're already split pushing. Lowkey need to make a decision, and they need to make it fast.
And now the timer is on Mega. When will Rocky commit the TP over towards the Baron? Because G4 is going back to base as well. They only have 2 members around the pit, and while DNK is low, that is not enough players to actually win a fight.
7K dropping lower. Baron 5K. Pop, of course, has the mark on him. The hook will connect. The TP now coming. He's going straight into the pit. Rocky is absolutely fearless. The Rakani gauge goes in, but it's not going to amount to much. Rocky needs to step forward. Steps into Hani. Hani's still going to be alive. Rocky is fade off, but G4 now stepping in. Cannot get anything else done. Celebrity looking for more. The shutdown is there. Daewoo going to grab one. G4 going to be in trouble. He's running away, but it's a wipe for Lowkey. They absolutely smashed the fight. The triple for Celebrity.
A massive team fight win right there for Lowkey. They didn't need the Baron. All they wanted was the fight with numbers advantage. That is how you convert a single pick onto the enemy jungler into so much more. 3 kills onto the AD carry, as well as that mid lane tower, and also the TP. Probably the biggest prize for Lowkey now, because with that added combat power, now they also have the global advantage, so they can look for these fights a whole lot more easily. Jumping into this team fight, though, is this hook that starts it off straight onto Pop, but they wait, the TP will come on through. And now I want to watch actually Artifact start this one off here, because he's the one that gets all the damage down on Pop and single-handedly zones him out of the fight. Daewoo, rather, can never get a single auto to come down. And Artifact was also able to land the Shuriken and follow up to get the kill on towards Rocky. Last time it was a battle between the mid laner of Lowkey Esports, Artifact, and Rocky. And while yes, it was Celebrity picking up the triple kill, very well played by him, I think Artifact had so much to do with the outcome of that fight.
Now we have to see what Lowkey can do to push their advantage. You see 3K for both the respective AD carries, assassins on the enemy team. But with that fight, they still don't amount to much. They get the TP advantage you mentioned, but it's not the Baron. It's not converted there. And so for Lowkey, need to get more if they want to cement this advantage. Because once again, Rocky is still a pain point. No matter what the fight they just won, they got a lot of gold as a team, but Rocky is still almost impossible for this team to answer.
Now, the difference for them coming out of this is the fact that Rocky doesn't have the TP now. So Hani, of course, can group up with the team. You just have to play off these 30-second windows, because that's when waves, they come in on these 30-second increments. So Hani can clear away this wave, pick up the next one, and then he has some free time to roam around with his team, and make a play happen potentially. Now, the problem is Rocky is always going to have control over this jungle unless multiple members of Lowkey are committed to the bottom side of the map. But this is going to be a situation where unless Lowkey are willing to make a play with this advantage, the game will just slow down because Mega aren't going to be forcing anything. They just want to wait until Rocky gets something done down ball lane.
It's just so easy for Rocky to get in and get out of any exchange. Of course, once Hani is demounted, luckily he's very close to base, but just huge amount of damage. However, Thresh and Lucian, you can see the rotation coming in. The vision is there to cover Rocky, though, so he knows that this is coming. Mission Impossible his way out. Hook shot, wall dive, blast cone. The play is there. Going to dodge out on the hook with the ultimate. Going to try to blast cone to safety. He will manage to make it out, but Hani's now coming in. Pop going to be the one in trouble. Rocky could be next on the list. The Rakan caught up. Mega tried too hard to force the split, but no, a beautiful fight from the Zion. Now Lloyd is diving right back in. Rocky is still alive, and it's Venus who is in trouble. No one can get a smooth leg up in the fight, but Artifact slays G4 in the 1v1.
Oh, no!
Daewoo now forced to run, but a mess of a fight.
Daewoo almost just abandoned by his team right there, is able to survive, but now the TP comes in on the top side of the map. It started off with Artifact and DNK finding the kill onto G4. Now it's a 5v3 potentially around the Baron. Without a TP, it is just up to Lloyd, and he doesn't even have flash. There's no way into this pit.
Incredibly scrappy fight thus far. Lloyd still stepping forward despite not having a flash here. 3K dropping lower. Is just a spectator to this Baron take. Rocky, in the meantime, will start to break down the bot lane tower, but will not overstay his welcome, and that's a big advantage for the side of Lowkey.
It's going to be so much easier to push forward and try to close this game out. Lowkey now 4K gold lead on the map. All you got to do is group up and force around objectives, not start knocking down these towers. Well, this Baron isn't going to be the Baron to end the game for Lowkey. This is when you try to bloat that gold lead, knock down all those towers outside the enemy base.
And of course, you have to remember, Mega, backs are against the wall. They lose this one. They are out of contention to leave the group. We can take a look exactly as how this happens. Not a full 1v1. G4 actually just pulls back, burns everything he has, goes back in, but surprise, surprise, there's an Akali here. You can see in his head that he thought he was going to get the fancy outplay, but just walks right back into melee range of the Akali.
Yeah, probably needed to wait for the second cast of R to come towards him and then go for the distort back, but ultimately that was almost a straight-up solo kill from DNK, using all the gold he got much earlier on in the game to turn that into a teamfight win, and eventually that Baron. Now, can Lowkey actually force anything? Because I do feel like Mega have a lot of defensive tools to try and survive here. There's only really, the one ranged AD threat on the side of Lowkey to try and hit these towers, so the siege should be a little bit slower, but I don't think there's a whole lot of wave clear up against the Baron buff. It's really just Daewoo trying to knock through these minions. This one should go down easy.
Yeah, no real wave clear realistically on either side, unless Zion feels comfortable enough to step forward to try to contest some of these creeps. Maybe Rocky can find a flank, but there's the calling. They're going to take a tower shot for a bit of that poke damage as Artifact fishes for the shuriken flip, looking for a way into the backside of a team fight. Now protecting the cannon creep is the name of the game, as no one on this team can actually approach. Feathers do get pulled back by Dale, leading tempo procced. Just trying to hold on for now. And you're waiting, honestly. The Cocoon does connect. Good poke damage. The AP on the Elise. Very high. There we go. Fight is kicking off. Rocky off to the flank, but he's not doing anything yet. His team might be dead before he even gets into the fight. D-Mount comes in for Hani. Hani now on the retreat. Has used the stopwatch. Artifact so incredibly low. His sights are set on this inhibitor. They're just going to try to break this and leave. The fight turns against them, but Lowkey get what they came for. Now they need to get out before they lose anything else. Rocky steps forward and just dies. Celebrity Ensemble. Now they have the potential to turn. The Baron creeps are here. It's really all on Daewoo. Lloyd and Pop just there to protect the AD carry to try to stop this game from ending.
Yeah, Celebrity did go down, but Lowkey might be able to force the end right now. There's so many minions inside of the base. They have to be able to find a fight, but it's not going to come.
Diving in. Last hope for Mega. They need to make this last desperate stand to hold on to the game. Redemption comes out. A bit more healing. Trying to buy more time for their AD carry. Or for the carries to run Rocky. 31 counting down. 19 on G4.
They need the melee minions because the cannons are outside of tower range. They actually can't walk up and hit the tower.
So much damage coming in for Artifact. They're just slowly bleeding them out. I don't think there's anything that they can do. Dale needs to find the fight immediately, but he's not doing it. He's not stepping forward, and that's going to be it. Mega, just like that, are going to be knocked out of the tournament. Lowkey have secured their way out of groups.
Led by DNK in the early game, he absolutely